Joining us now, a man who made me look like an absolute buffoon last week, which some would say is not that hard to do. The great Rob Ninkovich. Hello, Rob.
Hey, guys. Sorry, I was in New Orleans. You know how that goes. So I'm here now.
What time?
Happy to be on with you.
I guess Bourbon Street got you? Is that what happened?
Oh, I was fishing on Thursday. Then we got back, and I had a few cocktails and maybe a few more. And I woke up at like 9, and I missed my time. So.
That's forgiven, honestly.
Yes.
It's New Orleans.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
New Orleans.
NOLA.
I love
That's
NOLA.
right.
So your grade, Patriots draft-wise, Robert?
I'm going to go B++.
Okay.
Wow. Pretty high.
I'm not a big A on a draft class. The whole A+ or A, that whole grade on that, to me, everything is basically potential anyway. And now it's up to the players to go out there and perform. And then maybe in a year or two, you could say, wow, that was an A+ draft.
Yeah.
But everybody that you have right now, they're still just rookies that played in college, and you don't know what's going to happen. So for me, we'll see what happens. Similar to that 2010 draft where they had a ton of talent and they had great careers. So now you look back at that draft, you're like, wow, that was a heck of a draft. And those guys contributed. So we'll see what happens. You know what, though? I love that first pick. I love it. And, you know, just his interviews, you know, like it just got you going. You know, it just brought you back to, hey, I want to go out there. I want to go one-on-one with Will Campbell, and I want him to baptize me, and I'll just be laughing the whole time.
See,
you know, I'll be giggling the whole time.
Wiggy hated that pick.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. I wasn't a fan of
I mean,
it.
how could you not when you got a guy that's like, yeah, man, I'm just here to rip some heads off.
Yeah.
You know, it's
nasty.
Like I'm nasty. How would you define your game? Nasty, man. I'm telling you, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to protect my quarterback like it's the only thing I have on this earth. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play offensive line. Dude, it's like, it just gets your heart racing. And for me, when you look at that pick, that's a necessity. They needed a lineman that potentially could be here for 10 plus. Now that's all potential, like I said. But you know, it's similar to like a Matt Light pick where you bring a guy in who's got a super talent to him and his mentality's there. He seems like he could be a great leader, concrete guy. So, you know, I think it's a great pick.
But even to your point, Rob, Matt Light went in the second round. I would have rather seen them have gone maybe traded down and then took Tyler Warren. I know Shine was on Ashton Genty. I would have been happy with Ashton Genty. I feel like you could have got the lineman in the second round and one of the skill players with your first overall pick. And that's where I disagree with them. Yeah, he might be a great player, but I just disagree with them taking a lineman at 4 rather than a skill player.
Well, if was the 5th, we all be drunk.
That is true.
I mean, you could have done a lot of different things there, but having that 4th pick and having that guy right there to where you could say, hey, if we pass this up, if we trade down, if we get something else, we don't solidify the offensive line, which I think right now the offensive line is probably the biggest glaring need that to protect the blind side of your 3rd overall pick, who you think is going to be the future at quarterback. You know, having 2 young guys together, you could have a good run here for a long time. So I think going and getting that pick, and if you knew, like, coming into this draft, this is what we need. If he's available, we're going to get him. And guess what? Let's not look back. I think they did that. And that's, you know, to me, it was great. This draft, to me, it looked like they knew what they needed. They went and they got it. And, you know, now it's up to them to go out there and produce.
So arm length, not an issue for you?
You know, it's all footwork. Offensive line stuff is footwork based. And, you know, I'll tell you, when I go back to some of the hardest matchups I've gone against, it was guys with great feet. And he's got a great set. And when I talk about set, getting to the spot and his quickness. And, you know, I go back to when we played the Ravens. I think it was one of the AFC Championship games, and it was at home against the Ravens. And they had Marshall Yanda, who was playing tackle. And going into that matchup, he was a guard, Pro Bowl guard, you know, one of the best in the league. And I kept watching film. I'm like, okay, he's a guard, but he's going to be able to tackle. How am I going to attack him? And I tell you, it was really tough for me because he was so quick and he was getting to the spot. And when you're going against guys that have great footwork, it really messes with outside linebackers, pass rushers. So I don't think the arm length is going to be any issue. Matt Light, I think he had 33-inch arms. It comes down to your technique, your footwork, and your consistency. And I think he's got all three of those things.
Rob, you were in Chapel Hill a couple weeks ago. Wellness check on Bill. What the hell is going on with that guy? I don't know if you saw the interview yesterday.
I did. I wish you would have put a different shirt on. Somebody said put the the worst looking Navy shirt on. I mean, it must have been 30 years old. But anyway, I went down there just to check it out. Beautiful campus. I've never been in that area, so it was an opportunity to go check it out and help coach a little bit. It's just, the crazy part about college is you realize that the majority of these kids will never play it down in the NFL. So you're working with a lot less talent. And when you're in the NFL a long time, you're with the best of the best. So the best player on the best team in college is in the NFL. And then you go back to college, you realize, like, wow, these 90% of these kids won't even touch the field in the NFL. And some of them are getting paid, which is just nuts that all of them are getting paid. It's nuts to think that some of these kids that are getting paid aren't very good, but they think they're good.
Was your trip down there organized by Jordan Travel Enterprises LLC, or how does that work?
I did not come into contact with that aspect of the organization. No. I did not see her. I did not, come across anything. I went down. Steve's a good friend of mine, so I went down, hung out with Steve for a couple of days, and it was great. You love getting back into the swing of going into the meetings and working with guys in practice. And the one thing I would say about college athletes, they're eager to get to the NFL, so they want to learn and they want to. They want to get better. So it was cool. I really enjoyed it.
What is your guess at why Shedeur Sanders dropped so precipitously?
I would probably have to say the interviews, maybe, and that's all hearsay on how he interviewed. But, at the end of the day, it's still a job where you have to, go into an interview. You have to represent yourself as you would if you were on the team. And if he didn't do those interviews well, or if he came across as, kind of arrogant and, too big for certain teams, then I could see how that would be a big problem for these teams. And I was listening to earlier on the whole, gold chain thing. Everyone's got a gold chain. I got a gold chain on right now. The whole rap thing too, it's like, come on, everyone's listening to rap.
But Rob, you know the perception of how certain dudes, they carry themselves, and especially black athletes, if they're in the perception or whether it's people in the front office, I've even had position coaches where they look at and you carry yourself in this way, they instantly think because you act and dress like a rapper, you act like a rapper.
Well, I mean, I've been around a bunch of guys, in my career, and I've seen a lot of different situations where guys were probably more over the top than some rappers, right? And they were having a good time, and they were great football players. So, the whole rap, this guy's going to bring the entourage and all that. I really think at the end of the day, some of the modern right now, this situation that we're in 2025 with the cameras and the entourage and everything that you do is recorded and it's documented, and they're making videos and YouTubes and your platform. I think that also could cause an issue for some guys or teams, because they're like, you're bringing on not just the player, but you're bringing your entourage. You're bringing this whole thing with you, and they're recording everything. And at a certain point, you're just trying to build a team with individuals, and you're trying to lose the individuality to bring together a team. And it's really hard to build a team now when all these players are individuals and they're just about, hey, I'm going to try and brand and market myself. The legendary brand.
Yes.
He's already branding himself as
Thank
legendary before he's legendary. You have to go out and produce to become a legend.
Yeah.
Don't you think
Thank
that
you.
the college game though needs to figure out NILs, because this is just going to continue where guys are making millions and millions of dollars coming into the
It's
league?
getting worse and worse and worse. Now, look at the quarterback from Texas. He was going to make millions. Now he's making league minimum almost.
Right.
He's a 7th round pick. So, some of these guys were crying because they lost $6 million. Right? They weren't crying because they're happy to go to the NFL in the 7th round.
Yeah.
It was interesting, though.
They're like, wow, I just listened to my agent say I was going to be drafted first overall, and guess what? I lost $40 million. I better start crying. But I think the problem now is, like, for example, you see somebody getting paid in college, and they're out there and they're screaming, I am him, and I do this, but they only make 2 out of 10 plays, right? Like, to be that person, you have to make 10 out of 10. You got to be 12 out of 12, 14 out. You got to be the man, And I think there's a lot of, people that are delusional, honestly, on what they really are, because the majority of college players won't even make it to the league.
Ninko,
That's it. That's what's going to happen. And I think we're creating a huge mental health crisis for players because they think they're going to be these, football gods, and they're going to end up looking for a 9-to-5.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway that I heard over the weekend that landed with me about the draft is that we're done with the middle drafted quarterbacks. In other words, there's going to be 1st round picks and like 6th round picks, because people in the NFL either think you could be a starter now, or if you're 2 to 3 year project, they're not going to take any action on that until later in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that in some aspects, but you also have to look at the way the money is trending now. And if you are a team that has a quarterback, you're paying $60 million per. What is the highest paid quarterback's? What, Dak? He's making $60 million.
Yep.
So you're tying yourself to somebody, and it's going to take 4 to 5 years before you're even thinking about a quarterback, because you're automatically guaranteeing these guys massive amounts. I mean, even Cleveland, they handcuffed themselves so badly because they gave a terrible contract to a quarterback who didn't perform on a fully guaranteed deal, and now they're still handcuffed because they still have to pay him for the next 3 years. And there's just such a small pool right now for these quarterbacks where if you're going to pick somebody in the 1st round, they better be great.
Well,
or if you're not good, you're screwed for the next 4 to 5 years if you draft a top 5 quarterback and he's not good.
Well, Rob, what I think it is, it's really about the hype that they get when they're in college. Because if you look at last year's draft, for example, I mean, think about the hype that Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams got, but not just them. Then you throw in J.J. McCarthy, you throw in Bo Nix, right? So to me, I think it's more about how the NFL hypes these college quarterbacks. So like next year's quarterback class, everybody's already hyping up Arch Manning, right? But then what about the other guys behind them? Are they now going to say, oh, next year's going to be a really good quarterback class? Because that's, to me, where it goes. And I think a lot of people were just down on this year's class, and that's what it ultimately showed.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you put Drake May's draft class against this year's draft class for the quarterback, I don't think it's even close, right? Like Daniels versus what's available, Drake May versus what was available this year. And then all those teams that were needing a quarterback last year who picked and got their quarterback, well, they're set for the next 5 to 6 to 10. If you're lucky, you're hoping that you hit a home run with your pick. And this year you look at the number 1 pick. Okay, Tennessee, they picked their quarterback at number 1. Now you would have thought, I personally thought that Shedeur was going to go if he was going to not get drafted in the first round, he would have been gone in the 2nd round. Because after you look at the draft and the way it goes, okay, these teams needed a quarterback. Well, they picked the quarterback. Now they're not going to pick another quarterback. So Cleveland picking a 3rd and a 5th, I just thought that just didn't make sense to me, right? Like if you were going to pick Shedeur, why wouldn't you have picked him in the 3rd round? So, I just think that there's a lot of teams right now that that position at quarterback is so valuable. They looked at it and they say, hey, we already have a quarterback. We don't need a quarterback. Let's move on and let's build our roster in any other capacity that we can.
Rob Ninkovich gives the New England Patriots a B+, and he rarely gives an A. That's basically so.
I know I'll never give an A until after they perform, Greg.
All right. Well, it's great to hear your voice, and you should come to a road show. Join us at a road show this spring.
Where's the next road show?
Well, we're in Springfield this week, but we're going to. I know you
way
love
too far.
I know you love New Hampshire. You got the shop up in New Hampshire. Maybe we could get you out at Bernie's at Hampton, or maybe we'll get you out at Winnipesaukee. Maybe join us at
when
the
are we
dive.
going to the? Oh, I'll go to Winnipesaukee. I've never been to Winnipesaukee.
Okay,
never been.
All right, we'll get you up there. We'll get you up there for the July 3rd, Winnipesaukee.
Love it.
All right, okay.
July 3rd. I probably won't be there on July 3rd, but hey.
Just 4th of July weekend, Rob. You in?
Maybe I'll just call in with poolside. How about that?
All right. Good to talk to you. Thank you. There's the great Rob Ninkovich, everyday listener of this radio program.